There will be times where you get that report at the beginning of the job, and by the time you go to the final lodgement, that 6 months has passed. But the value of getting that report early on versus needing to get it again to submit just because the 6 months has passed is there. Like, the value is there.
G'day guys, welcome to the MTDC Lounge. This is a podcast about the construction industry and what you can expect. Whether you're a bright-eyed renovator, a budding developer, or a seasoned vet, we will dive into the construction world, touching on what to expect, what's next, and how to go about it. We'll hear from a heap of experienced consultants and trades. Be sure to tune in for all aspects. So let's get stuck into the next episode. G'day guys, and welcome back to the lounge with Matt and Mitch. Welcome back, mate. How's your night going?
Yep, pretty good. Another big one.
Another big one. That's the way. Mate, thanks for coming back on. I guess I wanted to lead on from the conversation about the free reports, and I guess what the clients can kind of expect after the free reports, after they find that they want to build or they still want to do something with their free reports. What's next? Our paid reports, right?
Yeah. So I guess like you said, we covered the free reports. They're things that anyone can get before engaging a designer, like just to familiarize yourself with the block. But then there's obviously the paid reports that you at that stage you know you want to get something done. You know that you want to either design, renovate, or start developing on your block. So next, paid reports.
Yeah, that's it. A bit of skin in the game. Start to really think about, the process, and I guess what's next. So I guess I'll kick it off. The number one report I think is that's important is I guess our council reports. Your 10.7A, which is the certificate that's specific to your block, and your 88B, I think, that you can find in your contract to sale. I think we mentioned.
Yeah, I think so. I think the 10.7 is probably the most important because it's going to very quickly tell you what some of the flags are about the block, the zoning of it, whether it's mine subsidence, bushfire, heritage is a big one as well, and flood. They're front of mind for us when we're looking at the designs.
Complying development too.
Yeah. Complying development. It'll tell you whether you straight away if you can go through complying development or whether the zoning or something else rules it out from the get go. So.
And it's hugely important between that complying development question and the DA question, right? Because of the costs and the turnaround times between the CDC or the complying development application and the DA application. These two routes are almost definitive of where you want to go kind of with your design.
Yeah, that's right. I'd also say with the 10.7, it's also going to tell you really early on what other reports you need at that stage too. There's no point getting your 10.7 after the designs are finished and you want to go into council, because before you start designing, that 10.7 is going to definitively tell you, do you need a bushfire report? Do you need a flood certificate before you even start designing? And I think that's key to making sure that like us as designers, we're on the front foot from the beginning rather than reacting to these reports after the design's done, because then everyone just looks a bit silly. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, particularly for places like the Hunter Valley region. I know in their 10.7s, once upon a time they were 149A, I think they were, but I know in their 10.7 reports, mine subsidence is a huge thing, and I mean, if we don't flag that straight away, that there's a mine subsidence issue with the Hunter Valley greater region design, I know it's got nothing but problems at the end of the design. We can spend months and months on a great design, and then right at the end we're getting hit with mine sub grade 1 or grade 2, and then all of a sudden there's no retaining walls. There's footings, no slab on ground, no 2 stories. The footings are coming out 5 meters past your strip footings are coming at 5 meters out past your footprint, right? So there's huge things, huge implications with this 10.7 report. And yeah, 100%. I think it's number one to get for sure.
Yeah. I think it's important to note too that the 10.7, it'll have some parts that are almost like they're somewhat available in some of the free reports, but the 10.7 is the same document that the council and the certifiers will use as well. So there's no confusion there. Like the 10.7 it's a legal document. It's what the council are going to say. It is flood, therefore you need a flood certificate. is bushfire, therefore you need a bushfire report.
Absolutely, and I guess the fun thing about the 10.7 as well is technically the day after you buy it, it's no longer valid, right? So yeah, but in saying that, council and certifiers and all the bits and pieces kind of accept that report 6 months after, at least up to 6 months. So they have a lifespan of 6 months. So as long as that design and as long as that purchase has happened and the design is finished and submitted within that 6 months, it's perfectly okay.
Yeah. And I mean, even like there will be times where you get that report at the beginning of the job, and by the time you go to the final lodgement, that 6 months has passed. But for the value of getting that report early on versus needing to get it again to submit just because the 6 months has passed it's there. Like the value is there. You're going to avoid so much heartache.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, imagine 1 month there was no Aboriginal heritage on one of them, and then a couple of months later, someone found like an artifact or something on one of their designs, and then all of a sudden that 10.7 changes. All the rule changes, flood heights change, all that kind of stuff, and it can all vary.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, we've had a case before where at the start of the journey, it was there was no heritage on the lot, and then by the time we submit, it's the 10.7. So there's draft legislation in place at the moment flagging it as heritage. So
West Walls End, isn't it? Yeah. It's a great place. No, yeah, it is a huge deal. Once they find a bit of like cultural or heritage space in an area, then absolutely they start to shut things down, and then they want to keep that look, that feel, that vibe of that area alive and intact. So yeah, hugely important. Can't stress how important that 10.7 is, particularly for the start of the design, for sure.
I think for sure. I think once we've got the 10.7, I think the next most important report would be the contour survey. It's going to tell you a lot of the design constraints, the slope, but not just that, but where your neighbours are set back, how close, say to a renovation, how close your current setbacks are, whether the fence is even closer where the boundary line is as well, because you don't want to make that confusion too late in the process either. But just getting an idea of where everything's sitting, how close you can go to certain boundaries. What else is there? There's ridge heights of your neighbours,
slopes, easements, all of it. So, well, a good contour survey. Well, there's a number of surveys, right? So, we're like when we go to a surveyor, or you go and see an outside consultant to do your surveying. Like you can expect a number of options for a survey, but ultimately what we use at the start is that detailed survey, which typically run between well, it depends on who you use. You can kind of expect anywhere between $1,700 and $2,500 for a survey, and that will capture ridge heights, next door neighbours, windows, all the bits and pieces that is incredibly important to a design as well.
Yeah. Another important thing that I find is making sure that the survey also captures trees that are both on your lot and neighbours' lots. Not every surveyor will do the trees.
Next door isn't. Yeah, they won't do them next door, will they?
Well, even some that are on the block
outrageous.
too. So
that's outrageous.
We want trees on the block, next to the block, because I would even argue would be more important the neighbouring blocks, because that's when you get your arborist reports and things involved. But you need to know where the trees are on your neighbour so that you're not undermining it or anything like that. And so another reason why the contour survey is so important, because from day dot, before we even start the design, if we've got a 15 metre high gum tree on the boundary, we know that, hey, we should probably not build on that boundary. give yourself a bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, or a heritage listed oak tree off Fernley Track. That's a huge thing, and particularly with trees and things like that triggers arborist reports, that triggers exploratory digging for the root zones. And particularly if the trees aren't on your block, the client or the person who wants to do the development doesn't usually have control on whether or not that tree gets removed, even if it's within that 3 meter requirement of a structure. So, contours is a huge thing as well. Even in my opinion, I think even if they don't have a reason to get the contour, I feel like it's a really good investment anyway, particularly if we're doing plans.
What would your rule of thumb be, I guess, if someone's come in and said, look, this is what I want to do? When do you think a survey is going to be needed versus when do you think it may not be needed?
I'm moving into that. I'm moving into that opinion now that if they're doing any renovations or any extensions or anything like that, they should be getting a contour anyway. Like even with pools, retaining walls, all of garages, all of the 10A structures, all the bits and pieces. I think people should be getting the contours. I think it's important that they do get these ones, because at the end of the day, like I know at MT Design we do our own dumpy surveys and we take our spot points and bits and pieces, but it's never going to be as accurate and as detail. So as anyone that you'd pay, right? So I mean, and we can get measurements and we can get numbers, we can get fence lengths and all the bits and pieces, but old mate next door will probably put their fence 400 mil into your block, and we're never going to know, but your setbacks are going to be different. Well, the client's setbacks are going to be different. So yeah, and then obviously that's a knock-on effect as well. Once you find out that old mate's fence is on your yard, then you start having that conversation. Say, hey, let me have my setback back. So yeah, and yeah, I think ultimately I think a contour survey should be probably got as soon as possible.
I think it's probably worth noting as well that during when the application's approved and the certifier's done their thing, the builders are able to start. Almost any extension or new build, you're going to need a peg out survey anyway. Which
is another survey, yeah.
So the builders are going to find out, they use from the boundary, from the plans that have been approved, this is exactly where the structure needs to go. Now, if a plan set's been drawn without the survey in the first place, the peg out survey is going to get done on where the boundaries actually are at that stage.
Yeah. And they're pretty expensive too.
Yeah, so it's if that ident survey's done,
which is another survey.
yeah. So it's you need to know where it is. So you want to use a survey all the way through it. One at the beginning so you can design, and then one towards the end so the builder can set out where it's going to go. And between the two, they should be pretty accurate. So
yeah, well, like again, that's valuable information, and particularly when they're going through the whole process, right? They are paid reports, so I guess we'll talk about them. So we've got the detail contour, and which 9 times out of 10 they've got a a rough. They call it a detailed survey, but it's never as detailed as it should be, right? And they have that variance of about 10%, and it's never as accurate. But then you get once you get approved and once you get all of the bits and pieces, you're then required by the certifier to get yourself a peg out survey, which means the surveyor, hopefully the same one, would come out, peg out what is on the plan, exactly show where the house sits in relation to where the actual boundary sits, and then once that is found, one, it's going to find out if there's any problems with the setbacks and anything like that, and then two, the builders have that accurate guideline of where they can and can't build, which is huge. It's massive. And then ultimately at the end of the design or at the end of the build, they would then go and get your ident survey to show that the house has been built exactly or within that variance of where it needs to be. Exactly. So in terms of costs and value to the client, detailed surveys are always 100% needed. And I guess once they progress through those steps to the OC, I guess using the same surveyor or the person or the group who did the first initial detailed survey, you wouldn't have to keep paying another surveyor to come out and do another job and pay an exorbitant amount of money. The crew that you got in there for the first detail survey would have most of that info and potentially save a lot of money. So yeah, as a whole, yeah, absolutely. Contour is a huge value. Absolutely. With that, we've got the 88B as well. A lot of houses, a lot of the houses that are old don't have the 88Bs. That's a certificate that shows all the covenants and the rules, particularly with estates. I think they're important as well, particularly when we come to the design.
Yeah. And I think we touched a little bit on it before about easements, but this 88B is going to tell you what, if you have any easements on your block, what they're going to be for, whether it's for drainage, whether it's for support or right of access if you're a battle axe block or anything like that. But yeah, 88B will tell you if you've got any easements on your block, what they are, and if you're allowed to use it, if it's drainage or sewer.
Well, it also tells you, more particularly with estates at the moment, the new estates, they tell you what you can and can't do with the block. So, they tell you if you can't park a caravan out the front. They tell you you can't put a carport on your block. They tell you that you can't keep cats or you can't keep chickens. Anything. It's a little bit curly. That you kind of buy a block thinking, yeah, I'm going to build this beautiful house and I'm going to have my chickens and I'm going to have my cats, and then all of a sudden you're not allowed. So yeah, it's an important design factor, but probably not as important as the 10.7, I dare say.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, the other things that come to mind are on that 88B. Sometimes materials are on there too, so it has to be brick, has to be tiled. They're more. I don't see too many of them in the new estates now, but any infill development or older block could still have these really old covenants on there too. Some of them even go into as far as saying that you can't subdivide the land either, or dual lock. So you're not allowed to do a secondary dwelling or a dual lock on there as well. So that's really, especially for anyone who's looking at either the option to develop for investment purposes or anything like that as well. But yeah, that'll be in the contract of sale too. So if anyone's buying a block, it'll be there on their contract of sale.
Well, usually with the real estate agents, they usually have that report pack too. So they usually have that available, and it's pretty easily accessible. So a bit of a flick through, you'll get your deposited plan, which is all your boundaries and your bits and pieces. But then, like, all the way down the bottom there would be like the 88B that'll have your lot number and your deposited plan number, and then it'll explain kind of what is and what is not accepted in that space.
Your conveyancer will highlight that through as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like a good conveyancer too will be 100% all across it, and they would keep it in mind. I did hear down the grapevine that people are going to now need to start noting when they go to sell their houses that there's unapproved works in their houses as well now. So that'll be huge.
That'll shake everything up.
It will shake a lot of things up for sure. Yeah. So we've touched on the 10.7 and the 88B. We've gone through the contour, and I know, like, we start going through the Hunter Water. Well, even the water board doesn't have to be Hunter Water. It can be Sydney's and all the bits and pieces. But particularly, these are the reports that will start coming through for the dial before you dig. But you would start to need to understand kind of where the sewer lines and bits and pieces are. What else do you think?
As far as I suppose the paid reports, once you've got your 10.7 bushfire report would be a really important one. Probably more. It's probably more important. One that that is bushfire prone early on. So just flagging whether or not it is prone is very important. If you're doing any, again, going more into that development, or if you're putting a secondary dwelling, or the terms, if you're increasing residential density. So if you're doing that, you can't do it unless you're at BAL 29 or lower. So that's a really important block. If you have a block that is prone bushfire prone land, and you want to put a granny flat on there, concept stage, early as possible. We want a bushfire report, because you don't want to get too far down that line.
Killing us at the moment. It's absolutely killing us at the moment. I mean, the RFS has put so many restrictions on the dual locks, the secondary dwelling, with anything that's higher than BAL 29, and it's just it's a massive process, and they don't, and it doesn't matter about precedents either. Like there's been particular situations at the moment where, we've gone out and seen clients, and they've got next door neighbours with granny flats within the same space, and I know one poor client that's wanted a granny flat on the back there, right near a bushfire zone, and everybody else has got the granny flats on the back, but because the bush has grown denser, the RFS has said no good. You're gonna have to
new vegetation classification.
Yeah. Ruined everything. So this poor client is now, fighting with the RFS to try and get her granny flat through, and all we can do is just push back, but we're just finding that we just have to keep pushing back the granny flat rather than the fight with the RFS. So it's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's good to note as well that that's what the bushfire consultants are there for too. So at least if the clients are aware at the concept stage about it, that hey, it's bushfire prone, we're going to get a preliminary report done at this stage to see whether BAL 29 is likely or how it's sitting. Because one, if we've got the ability, we can move or design the granny flat or development to be further away from the hazard to get it down to that level. But yeah, just because it is bushfire prone land doesn't flag, stop works immediately. It just means, hey, let's look close at this before getting too close to lodgement, or at least check it early on at that stage, because you don't want to, pay for all of the other reports, the town planning council and everything like that.
Going through the whole design process, all that kind of stuff. And I think as a design business, I think we've started flagging things like secondary dwellings and dual locks and things like that, and bushfire zones. Like, it's just one of the things that we now, every time we see a bushfire, well, not bushfire area, but like every time we see some dense forestry, we look at it straight away. It's now one of those things that's on our to-do things when we go to do the designs. It's just such a headache, and particularly right at the end. I mean, it's such a fight for that. Yeah. And now, like, we've spoken about the fire. Let's talk about the other side. Flood. It's just a massive thing too. Like, particularly in the Lake Mac space, around the water areas. And Cessnock, actually. Cessnock is probably one of the worst. Cessnock and Maitland, because they don't have that flood certificate and things like that. But once we find out that it's flood, it's almost important that we find out the 1 in 100 flood, because they have that. They have. Well, we can go on for days. They've got a freeboard. You have to be 50 centimeters or 500 mil above the freeboard or the 1 in 100 flood zone. Finished floor level, so I mean, that's a huge thing.
I think with the flood certificates, you're probably going to get a couple things right off the bat. One's going to be, if you are in a flood zone, what type of flood zone you're in, whether you're in a floodway, flood storage, or flood fringe. If you see floodway or flood storage, you need to look into it a lot closer. Sometimes you can't build at all in those areas. Sometimes it limits the type of construction to be barriers and joy. So in the event of a flood, all water can flow underneath the house, so you're not basically pushing it onto your neighbours. But yeah, the flood type is very important, but the next thing would be the flood level. So all habitable rooms need to be at a certain level. Sometimes garages also need to be at a certain level.
Air conditioners, all of the electrics, they have to be out of the flood zone as well. They have to share the same height and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge thing, particularly when it comes to design. It's important for us. And I think you touched on the fact that we can't, like, there's some areas there when we're doing the design for the subfloor as well, we can't enclose it, so there's no full height brickwork. There's none of that stuff. We need to do piers, and we need to do exposed subfloors so the water can pass through and not push the flood water back onto somebody else and have it somebody else's problem.
Yep. I'd even go as far to say, like, with flood, because it can be so restrictive. Like, if you've got an old house that's been there 100 years or however long, if you're then developing on that house, you can find yourself in some pretty difficult circumstances where you either can't extend, or if you were even to knock down the whole house, you'd need to either push it at the very back corner of the block because that's the only section that's actually high enough or outside of that flood zone. So I'd always recommend that if someone's looking at purchasing a block or a piece of land, and even if they don't plan on developing it, if it's coming up as flood in any of the reports at all, or even asking in the contract of sale what's in there if it's flood, if I was really keen on a block and it's in a flood area and I'm looking around going, I think it's going to be a problem, I'd pay for that report. It could just save a lot of money, time, heartache.
I mean, with the bushfires and the flood zones as well, if you're in that space, your insurance premiums are through the roof anyway. They know for sure. Like mine subsidence spaces, flood zones, and bushfires are usually the things or our go-tos when we're first designing for a client, and they're the big things. Insurance guys know about it, and it is a huge cost. For sure. So at MT Design, when we do our quotes and our bits and pieces, we include all of these reports. Well, we include the bushfire, not the bushfire, the contours, and the 88B and the 10.7, all within our quote at the start. So we kind of get those costs and wrap them up in our quotes. But I guess for clients, I think it's important to note that they can go and get these reports themselves from council, their flood, their bushfire, all the bits and pieces. And while the contour costs about $1,800 to $2,500 depending on where they go, ultimately they could go and get the 10.7 or the 88B or anything that they don't have from their local council and pay like a nominal fee. I think it's like $250 or something like that. So I mean, once we get the initial reports and then the initial bits and pieces, another important report to get, and is going to be absolutely necessary whether you get it at the start or even during the concept space, is the soil report. Now the soil report's now becoming a huge thing. Like certifiers won't approve anything now unless they've got this report.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's not just a matter of getting a report and ticking off the certify. Like it can have pretty big impacts on the engineering and the slab requirements or footing requirements of the build too. So getting that early on, I'd probably say it's probably more important for new blocks. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I think so. But once you're doing engineering for anything and engineering, an engineer shouldn't be doing an engineer report without a soil report, because they're taking a stab at what the soil is there, and I guess that's why the certifiers are cracking down on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it could even be worth getting something like the soil report earlier on in the process as well, either potentially at the design or even just I guess if you're looking at building on some land, getting a soil report done, or reviewing a soil report that's already been done when the land was subdivided or anything like that, because that could have some big whether you're doing a custom build, project home build, or anything like that. Knowing what your soil classification is early on, and I guess before you're purchasing a block too, just understanding what that is could have big implications too.
Well, I know. Like anecdotally, we had a client come in a couple of weeks ago actually, and she wanted to buy a block out at one of the estates. I think it was out in Thornton, and she came out and she was like, well, these are the design guidelines, and she showed us the 88B, and the 88B said, look, hey, 70% of the facade has to be brick, and then gave her all these curly kind of design requirements for this space out at in this estate. And then we started going through the process of talking about designs and started talking about what we're going to get done, and we went through all the great conversations of that pre-concept conversation, and then we went and had a quick chat to one of our engineers to find out, how much the slab would be, because she was very cost conscious. And then the first thing the engineer asked was, "What's the soil? I don't know. How am I going to give you a price based on no soil?" So she gave the estate a call, and the estate said, "Well, it's a H2 soil zone, which is a very reactive, very very harsh slab to pour, very very hard place to put your piers and your bits and pieces." And then all of a sudden it goes from a normal, an M class slab, which is the nice standard easy one, and then to an incredibly expensive slab to make sure that you don't have any subsidence or any slip. So yeah, that saved her, in my opinion. That's probably saved her thousands and thousands of dollars, because being someone that's a first homeowner, and designing a house and going through the entire process without knowing that it's a H2 zone, because we don't know that either. We won't know that until we get the soil report ourselves. But it saved her thousands and thousands of dollars just by that one question. What's the soil type?
Yep. 100%. And you want to know that early on. New estates. Old estates anywhere.
Yeah, well, the new estate should absolutely know, and that's why it's just so important to make sure that those reports are part of a quote, or at least in your hands by the time they come to a designer, because the free report or not, like a designer or a good designer rely on those reports to give the best result. And I think without that information, you're just throwing some pretty pictures down on a page and hoping it's going to stick. So yeah, 100%, absolutely. All right, mate. Thanks for joining me again tonight, mate, to talk about all the important stuff in the world of design and planning. Any questions for me at all?
No, it's been good. I think we've covered off paid reports and I guess the importance and value of them, because it's you get it early on and you save money later on.
Yeah, absolutely imperative. I completely agree. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me again tonight on the lounge. And again, if you've got any questions at all, if you want to reach out, please feel free, like and subscribe, and shoot me some questions, and we'll see if we can answer them. Have a good night.